Hi, welcome to episode 387 of The Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where I sell my handspun yarn and knitting patterns. Hi, how are you? I hope that you are doing well. It is Monday, August 1st. I cannot believe we've made it to August. School goes back into session in just a few short weeks, and I feel like the summer is fleeting. The weather is not cool yet, although I am waiting for it to be, and I'm waiting to get bitten by the sweater bug, because you know that usually happens to me in August, and I want to get knitting on all kinds of sweaters. I am not quite there yet, though, so I will share a few other things with you this week. This is also my last, I'm T-minus 9 days to vacation. I could not be happier. I haven't really taken a vacation in the last couple years. We did get away a little bit last November when my husband ran his Ironman, and I went to Chicago in June, where I got to spend a few days with my sister and her kids, but we really have not done any traveling because of the state of the world, and I admit that I am a little nervous about traveling because the state of the world is not as nice as I would like it to be. Obviously, there is still a pandemic going on, and the other thing that is happening here in the United States is monkeypox is spreading. So there are always things to worry about, particularly when you spend time in places with lots of people. We plan to go masked, we plan to bring our hand sanitizer, and we plan to be as safe as we can possibly be, but we are headed to Norway. So I'm super excited. This is going to be another running trip like when I went to Ireland in 2019. We signed up for this a while ago, and it is only now coming to fruition, and so we have been kind of a race of packing, and I am trying to get my last week of work to cover for everything while I am away. I will podcast again next Monday, which will be August 8th, and then I will be taking 2 weeks off. So you'll have to do without, and I will come back to you on, I believe it is August 30th, I think, August 29th or 30th. So, lots of things to talk about, obviously. We are excited for our trip. I'm excited to be going to a place where there is knitting. Yes, I will be yarn shopping. We will also be running roughly 5Ks daily. We will be touristing and just having a good time, and I am very, very excited. But I have so much to get through before I leave, so this week is a lot of working, and actually last week was as well, and so I don't have quite as much knitting and spinning to show you right now, but I will have, I have a project. I have 2 projects to show you, and then I brought my other cast on for my trip away, so I have a few things to share with you, plus a finished spin. So, this week I am drinking Harney & Sons Heirloom Bartlett Pear. I guess I am channeling fall in mind. This is a white tea with pear pieces, apple pieces, peach pieces, pear flavored, nutmeg, ground cinnamon, cinnamon chips, white cornflowers, and peach flavor. So this is from Harney & Sons Tea, which is made in New York, and I love their teas. They're delicious. And today I am drinking it in my roastery mug, which is actually a coffee mug, but it is an enamel mug, and it keeps my beverage hot forever, which I love. And even though it is 85 or 90 degrees outside, I am enjoying a cup of tea today. This weekend we did a ton of cleaning and we kicked up a ton of dust, and so I'm feeling congested today, so that tea is going to be just perfect. I also got a lot of knitting done yesterday because we took a day trip to Illinois. My husband's uncle turned 58 yesterday, and they were throwing him a surprise party, so we decided to go, and it is a long drive. It's between 5 and 5.5 hours each way, so we drove over early in the morning and got there in time for lunch, and then we hung out for a little bit and had cake in the afternoon and then headed home. And I am tired today, but I did get lots of knitting done. So let's talk about my 2 knitting projects this week. The first is one that I showed you last week, and I don't think I had even cast on yet. The pattern is called Pop and Lock, and it is by Lisa Ross. It is a cross between a shawl and a kerchief. It is basically a cowl that is knit sort of like a shawl, and then you seam the two sides together behind the neck, and that makes it a lovely cowl. And one of the things that I love about knitting that way is that then you don't have to worry about a shawl pin or tying it together in a knot or anything to secure it. It is just secure and on your neck. I don't find that cowls that are knit that way are quite as warm as some cowls, but I find for decorative cowls, it is really, really beautiful. And Pop and Lock is basically a two-color design. The designer knitted in black and a speckle, which we are recreating in Zen Yarn Garden colorways. And this will be a kit for Zen Yarn Garden. Obviously won't include the pattern, but it will include the yarn. So the sample that I am knitting is in two colorways. Both of these are on Zen Yarn Garden's Superfine Merino fingering base, which is super soft. It is I believe 100% superwash merino. No, it might have a portion of nylon in it. I should know this by now because we discussed this. I think it's actually 100% superwash merino though. In the colorway Midnight, your fairly basic black, and then I am using a speckle colorway that's called Pop Rocks. And it is really pretty. It's a white and it has pink and blue and green and some purple in there. And so it's a really nice colorway to sort of contrast against the black. And I have completed probably about half the knitting and the first portion of the cowl. Oops, and of course I'm just tangled. I finished, I cast this on earlier this week, and then I finished all of my repeats yesterday. So from where I started, this is the top corner, and as you can see, there's sort of a flat piece here where the cowl kind of expands from there. You are expanding on one side, and this flat piece will be one of the pieces that seams at the neck. And then the first part of the cowl is just a garter stitch and then kind of an eyelet row in there. And I went ahead and did that for everything I needed to do. And then there's like this little border section here. And then the next piece of the cowl, which I am hoping to finish this week so that I can show you this finished next week, and I can mail this off before I leave. The next part is a mosaic knitting section. And the reason that I did not continue on yesterday is because I did not want to have to read a chart in the car. For all of these things, I could basically just follow the pattern because it follows a fairly regular repeat, and so I did that, but the next section, like I said, is a mosaic between these two colorways. It calls for one skein of sock weight yarn in as the background color. So this is a 400 yard skein, and then I am using a 200 yard mini skein. So it's basically half a skein of the Pop Rocks colorway to go ahead and knit the shawl. And this should be enough yarn to knit the pattern as written. So I'm excited for that, and my hope is that I will finish that this week. That is most of what I'm working on this week. And again, I'll just give you a little bit of a close-up of that. You can see some of the speckles in there. It's really pretty, and it kind of pops against the black. I'm sure partially why she called it Pop and Lock. So that is the first thing that I'm doing, and I should apologize. I can hear a million things going on right now. I have the laundry dryer going. My husband seems to be vacuuming right now, and the neighbor is mowing the yard. So if you hear any of those things, just consider that a nice background. That is what I'm listening to this afternoon, and now you can too. Usually I close my door when I podcast, but I didn't think to do it, so you may be getting a little bit of that in there. So the other thing that I have been working on is I'm knitting one final chicken before I go, and I just thought I would share this with you because it is so pretty. This week I am working on handspun from another spinner. This is not my handspun because I don't do thick and thin and chunky very well, but this is kind of a natural and a honey color, and it is just knitting up beautifully, particularly in garter stitch. I've been doing garter and loopy, and I just love the way that looks. These are for the chickens for the City Girl Farm. I have talked about them before. There are many links in my show notes, and you can just Google the City Girl Farm if you'd like to see. I have 2 more skeins to finish before I return it to them on Friday, and my hope is then I will get to sit down and do a little bit more on my chicken. I did just a little bit of the very first one, and then I took it in so we could talk about it, and I have plenty more work to go. It is certainly not a priority this week, so I don't know if I'll get to it, but if I do, I will bring it to show you next week. The other thing that I would work on this week if I had time is, and I don't know whether I'll get to it, I have not made any more progress on Miles' sweater, which is basically just a plain top-down raglan, and I am doing the raglan shaping right now, kind of setting up from the neck and working down. I have not split off for the sleeves yet. I didn't get any work in on it this week. My hope is that, or this past week, my hope is that maybe I'll do a little bit of it this week, but if I don't get to it because I'm busy doing other things, so be it. I do have a lot of things that I need to get done this week, so I will see. I'm sort of in chicken with my head cut off mode right now, so we'll see how all of that goes. So the other thing that I wanted to show you is that I have determined what I'm going to take with me for my knitting on my trip. I did show you a couple episodes ago, I think 2 episodes back, I showed you some stock yarn that I'm going to take with me. That is Knit Picks in their Felici self-striping colorways, and those are socks for the kids. I thought I would throw those in my bag because what's a couple extra balls of stock yarn? We are traveling as light as we can because we have to ferry a lot of our own luggage, and we are in and out of different hotels most days. So I am really, really trying to travel light, but I'm taking those sock yarns, and then I'm taking one project for myself. Last time we went on one of these trips, which was Ireland, I decided to take a cake of basically lace to fingering weight singles that I had spun and work on a shawl. And I picked a shawl that was not terribly complicated. It was, I think, it was a Stephen West, now I'm blanking on the name, but it is one of his garter stitch shawls with some short rows. And it was wonderful because I could pick it up and put it down at any time, and there was no problem, and it was one set of needles and one cake of yarn. So I decided I wanted something similar this time, and technically I'm taking 2 needles because I am creating a garment, but I am only taking 1 cake of yarn. I am going to be knitting the Maven top, and I completely forgot who it is by. I will add that information into the show notes, but it is a top-down yoke increase tee, and so I am just going to knit that. It is it's kind of got some garter ridges, so it's just some stockinette and a few garter ridges, and like I said, it's called the Maven top. And I am going to knit it in a gradient cake from Zen Yarn Garden that they sent me a while ago. This is one of their gorgeous colorways. This is the Woodland colorway, and it's kind of like a dark muted rainbow. It's got red and orange and yellow and green and a little bit of purplish red and black, and it's absolutely lovely. I think it's going to be stunning. I've always loved this gradient and wanted to use it for something, and they sent me an extra one and told me it was mine to use, so that is what I'm going to do. This tee, in my size, it takes around 750 to 850 yards, so my hope is that I will be able to crank it out I will be able to crank it out for myself. I have another tee that I have knit in that I knit in 1 cake of their these are their Luxe gradient cakes, which are 150 grams, 750 yards of a merino cashmere silk, and they are absolutely lovely, and they're so soft. They beg to be worn close to the skin, and they make for a really stunning top because the gradient is perfect. It goes throughout the entire knit, and they're really just eye-catching. I get a ton of compliments whenever I wear my projects done in these gradient kits, and I am kind of on a top and tee kick. I really like them because I can put them on under a sweatshirt or under a sweater, and they're kind of perfect for all weather for me because I can bundle them up or dress them down, not dress them down, but wear them on hot days, and even the wool actually breathes fairly easily on hot days. So my plan is to take, the reason I have to take 2 needles, of course, is because the collar and the hem are done on a size smaller than the rest of the body, so I will be taking 2 needles, but I'm just going to take 1 project and hope that I can knit it all the way through. I believe that the way the tee is done, and I haven't read entirely, so I'm not giving anything away here because I don't know, but just by looking at it, I think I do the yoke increases and then I just bind off for the sleeves and continue down the body. If that is the case, I don't even have to put anything on waist yarn. If it is the case that I need to stop and finish the sleeves, I may actually break my yarn and do that just to stay consistent within the gradient. But I have the full cake, and I am really, really looking forward to that project. And if I don't finish it on my trip, I will finish it when I get home, but I think it's just going to be a lovely knit. The other thing is, I clearly do not have to bring all of my yarn with me because, of course, Norway is a yarn country. And so I hope that I will be able to do some yarn acquisition while I am there. I do not know precisely what I'm going to purchase, and I don't have anything specific in mind. I do know that some of the Norwegian wools are a little bit rougher and more rustic than I am used to, so I don't know for sure precisely what I'm going to do in terms of whether or not I will be bringing home a sweater quantity, but I also know that they have some really great sock yarns that are sort of reminiscent of some of the German sock yarns that are sturdy and hard wearing and self-striping and lovely patterns. I've heard that yarn is procurable just about everywhere, and we're going to be spending a day in Oslo at the very beginning of the trip that we are just going to play tourists for a day, and I have already looked up a yarn shop and sort of mapped it and how far it is from our hotel. So my plan is to do a brief bit of yarn tourism before we set out on our journey. I really don't know what my internet access is going to be like. We have been told to expect somewhat rustic accommodations, which was not really the case when we went to Ireland. So my husband and I approached this trip with a bit of trepidation, but we shall see what comes of it. I will be sharing some of my travels on Instagram while I am gone, if you would like to follow me there. And of course, I will share some photos with you when I get back and tons about my experiences. So, sip of tea, we'll get to spinning, and then I will get you out of here. Today is going to be a short one. So, this week, my husband and I delighted in watching the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, which is the women's Tour de France, which ran for a week. Technically, we haven't watched last night yet because we didn't get home until late last night, so we will finish that off tonight. But I managed to spin up one more skein of handspun yarn during the Tour de France Femmes. So this is a braid that I showed you from Hello Yarn. It was called Stormy Weather, and it's on Falkland, and this one is a little bit more crisp than some of the Falklands that I have spun. I think this would make really good boot socks. It feels not soft enough to be like right next to your neck, but not itchy enough to be problematic. And I will tell you that when I wear itchy wools on my ankles itch a lot. So I would not lie to you about where this yarn falls in that spectrum. I do think it would be fine for socks. It's in a lot of really kind of moody colors. And like I said, this one was called Heavy Weather, and it's got some browns and greens, and then it's got a little bit of yellows and pinky purples, and it's just a really nice skein. Based on the way it's spun and based on the way it is right now, it has not been washed yet, so I cannot give you final measurements. My guess is it's going to be right around 300 yards, which would be probably a DK to sport weight, which would be absolutely lovely for handspun socks as long as your feet aren't too big, but I can usually get mine out of 2 or 250, so 300, and I have a size 6.5 foot, so 300 should definitely get you at least like a women's size medium. And you could certainly use it for other accessories. It would make great mitts or a hat. I don't know whether I would put it in a cowl just because it is a little bit crisp. I'm not sure that I would put it like right next to my neck, but it's not rough. And Falkland is Falkland tends to be sort of a cross between the shorter, finer wools and the longer wools. It has a slightly longer staple, which makes it a great beginner fiber to spin, but it is a little bit softer like the merinos. So you're not looking at something that's going to be super scratchy. It's just not super, super soft. So it needs a good bath. You'll notice by some of the, it doesn't look perfect. It needs a good bath, but that is what I'm going to be bathing up, and hopefully I will get it up into the shop this week. I will let you know that the shop will be taking a vacation as I do, because I do not want to, Etsy requires that you ship within a certain time frame, and of course I won't be able to ship. So I am going to close my shop for the 2 weeks I am on vacation. So I will be putting this and one other up in the shop sometime this week. And if you want to snag them, please do, and I will get them out before I go. Otherwise, the shop will be closed down for a couple weeks, and then it will open again when I get back. I do not have a new spin for the week because I think that is not going to happen. I'm going to be realistic about the fact that I have my regular job, plus I have a whole bunch of other things, tech edits and sample knitting and things that I am trying to finish out before I go, so that I can take 2 weeks off and not have anything hanging over me. It has been 2 years since I have taken a real break where I have had sample knits, no work, no commitments, and internet is going to be a little sparse probably in Norway, and I am actually really, really looking forward to that. I am ready for a break to just let my mind be for 2 weeks, to work on knits for myself and maybe even for the kids, and to just enjoy some time traveling. Obviously, it won't be the same as the before times, but my hope is that we can enjoy it. So, I act like I'm saying goodbye to you, but the truth is that I will come back to you next Monday and show you what I have finished. I've already shown you most of what I'm taking on the trip, so it will probably be a short podcast. I can talk about some up-and-coming things that I will work on when I get home, but I will be here briefly next week. I hope that you are having a lovely start to your week, that you enjoyed your weekend, that you can find something fun to craft on, and I will say, as I always do at the end of every podcast, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.